Come on. Oh yeah, or by the side here. I just push them a bit closer so we don't need to sit like so formally. Hello? Yes. Can we put up the slide? Meta? Ah, there you are. I put it a bit closer so we don't need to be so formal. I'll do the handheld. I can share it handheld with you. Everything's okay? Fine. So I actually, can you press it on the watch? I did that also. Because you should use the faces and in that. I never had that with that. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask him just to, Masamba, maybe you can just do the short introduction about the, 2 minutes about the Global Innovation Hub and the role of startups and the new generation of, because it's, it's Ethiopia, India, Brazil, it's going to be here. So the Global South. So we're going to start this by Masamba giving a bit of an introduction on the Global Innovation Hub for you, especially in the Global South. This is for you.
Thank you so much, Dennis, and welcome to all of you. Good afternoon to those that are participating in person, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those that are following us virtually. My name is Masamba Choi. I'm leading the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub, an initiative of the UNFCCC Secretariat launched at COP26 in Glasgow. And what make really specific our approach to innovation is the fact that we are completely human focused, human centered. So our understanding of addressing the global challenge is that it's not about working in silos, separating mitigation action from adaptation and from development action. For us, the objective is development, and um, the global challenge are constraints. So we have to develop in a way that is aligned with the climate and other sustainability goals, in a way that facilitate um, regeneration of land, and in a way that enhance biodiversity. So it's why our vision is to use innovation to serve the many people and the planet. And we have a twofold mission, which is how can we mobilize innovation um, and accelerate and upscale the deployment of existing solution, and how can we also develop the acceleration of the missing solution. And threefold um, core value that are articulated, as you have already, some of you heard several times me saying, around caring, sharing, and daring. Caring because for us, climate and sustainability innovation mean first to genuinely care for the well-being and the needs of the many people in the planet. What we want to achieve is to mobilize innovation so that we can provide flourishing life to 11 billion people in a way that is aligned with the climate and sustainability goal in a healthy planet. Sharing climate and sustainability innovation is all about collaboration, radical collaboration. We will not be able to achieve the global challenge if we are not collaborating. And the center of collaboration will have sharing. Sharing knowledge, it's why we are supporting strongly open source, sharing experience, and also being able to come up with innovative business model that will enable to create value or maximize the creation of value for entities that do not have necessarily the same interests so that they can sit and work together. Finally, daring is also a very important point because most of the time, when we are setting climate and sustainability goal, we set the goal not based of what is needed, but based on our perception of what is possible. And why is it like that? Because we want to be credible. Whenever you are in front of a board of directors and you set a goal and a target, the first thing that you will be asked to clarify is how will you achieve your goal and your target? What technology will you be using? Where the finance will come from? What policy instrument will you activate? And so and so. And you cannot respond, I do not know. Because if you say, I do not know, they will say, you are not credible. And this is why people are setting goal and target based on their perception of what is possible. But this is not the right thing to do. We need to set goal and target based on what is needed. This moonshot way of thinking is fundamental because this is precisely between what is needed and what is possible, which is the main driver for innovation. If we do not do that, we are stuck in a vicious circle where those that are setting goal and target will say, oh, I will not be ambitious because I do not have the solution. Those that are developing the solution will also say, we cannot develop transformative solution because there is no demand. So one important aspect, particularly for the global south, I will reiterate that to conclude. Mitigation, climate mitigation is not about decarbonization. It's about development. but developing in a way that is aligned with the climate and the sustainability goal, developing in a way that is aligned with a healthy planet. So the global south need to be very much aware that they have a role to play in mitigation because they have to leapfrog. They should not follow the same pace of development as the global north. They have to leapfrog, they have to leverage digital technology to be able to develop in a way that is clean, in a way that is inclusive, in a way that is leaving no one behind, in a way that is able to provide flourishing life to 11 billion people.
Thank you very much, Masamba. And this is why we are here today now. Back a few months ago in India, we launched this Gigaton Opportunity Initiative to say that why are we focusing on the problems? Why are we talking about reduction all the time? The future is already here to a large extent. There are passionate people around the world. Not many of them are here. Most of the people with real passion and delivering things, they're not sitting in negotiating rooms. They are developing their innovations in incubators around the planet. And especially in the global south, we see a lot of passion of delivering what the world needs. But they're not here. So we wanted to bring them here, virtually most of them. One of them we managed to get here to really show that there is so much happening. But even in the global north, most of the people working in incubators are not here because they're trying to push new, exciting solutions to the market. Here, we have people trying to protect the old. That's basically what these conferences are. It's the old fighting with the slightly less old, but the new is not here. The global south is not really here represented, and the incubators and the startups is not represented. So that's why we are so excited to at least have here just a few snapshots to blink through this gloom and see some passion and amazing opportunities that are here because we have 8 tools and initiatives with the potential to deliver more than a gigaton each because these are not individual startups. These are organizations that are pushing startups out year by year. These are the places where the future is born. Why aren't they at the center of the climate negotiations? Sorry, becoming a bit more upset here. So we are really here to, as a first step, to start to connect these networks also, because today they work in isolations, many of these incubators. They should not do that. They should help each other and we should help them. So this is what we do now, and it's part of the MI Clean Tech Exchange also, which is an idea that emerged from India. Smita will talk about that later, but one of the first countries on the planet that had an international incubator that tried to do that. So, and as Masamba said, what we're trying to focus on is not startups that make the current system less bad, but those who can deliver on a future where 11 billion people can live flourishing lives. So, and that's why we have this image. We want this to be burned into your brain that it's not bad to reduce emissions. But if you only do that, you're living in a fossil free typewriter world. You're trying to make the current world fossil free. But the current world, with all its wars, inequity, and destruction of biodiversity, is not where we want to be. We want to have delivery on human needs in a sustainable way. So that's what we introduced this expanded climate innovation agenda. We want to focus on those delivering on human needs and those who are the solution providers. We don't invite people to say, you have a big problem. How are you going to reduce that? We invite people because you have something amazing. Let's share that. Let's accelerate that. Imagine if that was the climate conference we had, where people came with the solutions. Let's have that problem people sitting in a small room somewhere and then bring the solution providers to the center stage. Imagine the passion and the optimism to see all these people. And because we've seen this so many times, this is the old way of thinking. We're looking at where are the emissions? Transport, energy, buildings. Oh, who are they? Cement, steel. And then we ask them, reduce emissions. It's not possible. Reduce emissions. It's not possible. Okay, and we keep on going year after year. Give us some CCS, or maybe you have some expensive technologies. Then we shift the perspective and say, what do we need? We need nutrition. We need places to live. We need flourishing lives. We need art, science, culture. That is what makes people flourish. Who are providing that? And what do they need? How do we get to that position instead? Why don't we have that position and starting with? Why are we talking about reduction targets all the time instead of growth targets for the solutions we need? It's so bizarre. And this is what makes me angry and frustrated. The last 30 years, we've been, it's COP28 for God's sake. It's 30 years we've been sitting here. For 30 years, the internet did not exist. None of these companies, Amazon, Tesla, Google, Facebook, Uber, Alibaba, Netflix, Zoom, they have changed how we work, how we think, how we buy. Not all good, but in a very different way. Today, these new companies that will be on this slide in 30 years are in these people that are going to talk. They are the one pushing the next solutions. Why don't we focus on making sure that they deliver in a good way? Because many of these companies are part of the problem now. They're turning us into consumers. They're trying to push us to do stupid things. But they are doing things in a very different way. So why aren't we focusing on those who are going to be on that slide in 30 years' time? Because that's where the future is born. Uh, but that, so let's be a bit more calm down now a bit and look at what actually needs to be done. The current innovation ecosystem is not really done, programmed for this. It's made to make the current system a little bit less bad. That's how most incubator works today. And that's what we want new sort of strategies and ways and capacities to help them, not just meet a company and say, how do you make money? How do you set up a board? But also, how do you become purpose driven? How do you meet the needs in society? How do you get that data so you actually know that you are helping people, not making them fat, depressed, and angry and sad? Because that's what we have with fast food, fast fashion, fast media. There's no secret that this is making us sick, mentally polluted, because it's all about dopamine in the short term. That is not healthy. So we need startups to understand how that is done, and we need incubators who can guide them to that. And we need them to understand things like very basic. What is the purpose that I have here? Most incubators don't ask that questions. They ask, how do you make money? What's the market? But if we start in our culture asking the startups, what is the purpose you have? How are you making life better for people? How is it possible for you to make 11 billion people live flourishing lives? Not just the rich people around the corner who get a new fancy app or new technology. What happens? And how can you move that? How do you build your capacity and your business in that? So we develop these kind of tools to help incubators guide the next generation of startups. And at the core here, and this is a bit technical, but something that I want you to remember is that we need to move beyond product substitution. We can't just look at there's a product and make a better version of that. That is not enough. Take an example. We can't ask those who make garment today and make slightly better shirts. We need them to ask, what kind of wardrobe are you contributing to? If you make your shirt a little bit less polluting, but you're trying to push people buying a lot more of it and of less quality, so it doesn't last very long, then you're a fast fashion problem company. It doesn't matter if you make a bit of clean cotton and talk about circularity because your business model is fundamentally flawed. So we need to acknowledge some of these things and then fundamentally ask, what is the wardrobe there for? To take selfies of you being insecure in front of your other peers, especially young females today are suffering from this. And we are not challenging the companies for that because we ask them, oh, are you a bit circular in your fast fashion? Instead of, are you pushing people into depression of not being happy with their own bodies and how they look like? These are very important questions to be asked. Are you helping people to live flourishing lives, to be artists, to be scientists, to create something? Why aren't we asking companies, how do you make people creative and happy instead of just meeting their consumption needs for fashion and outfits? So and that's what a gigaton opportunity exists. We want to not complain. We want to bring the fantastic people who are up here and doing all these amazing things to the forefront. And for 2024, we hope to grow this network also. And any one of you who are interested in this as an incubator, as a startup, as a policymakers, as a company who's working with startups on trying to scale them, please join us because next year we want to have at least 50 to 60 gigatons of solutions, the whole world of solutions to show the future is here. And with that, I would like to introduce one of the big surprises for me during the last few months was to really understand more about Ethiopia and their amazing innovation ecosystem. If you have the time, please visit their um, little or little big building that they have right just a few meters from this session, and you see what it is, because most people that work with innovation do not think about Ethiopia as a solution provider, but that I think is about to end. So if we can play the first video with a fantastic minister, Camilla Heb. And also, she's not the Minister of Environment, she's the Minister of Skills and Labor. She's in task by building the kind of country that will survive in the 21st century and thrive. So, yeah, please put on the video and enjoy.
Dear participants of the COP28 at the NFCC Global Innovation Hub, my name is Mufarrehat Kamil Ahmed, Minister for Labor and Skills
We
of the
don't hear
Federal
anything.
Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. As Minister with focus on skills and labor, my role is to look forward and build the skills needed for Ethiopia as we develop and help build a better future. We strongly support an expanded climate and innovation agenda with a strong focus on a new generation of solution providers with globally sustainable innovations rather than only focus on how to reduce old problems. The Gigaton Opportunity Initiative with focus on human needs is something that fits well with our thinking and current plans for action. We look forward to deliver on such a human-centric agenda together with other stakeholders in support the innovation ecosystem and entrepreneurs. It's time to see and support Africa as a strategic solution provider for the future. Ethiopia has a vibrant innovation climate and number of leading startups that can deliver important contributions towards global sustainability that we have showcased through the Global Startup Awards. Moving forward, we would like to see processes such as the post DG planning starting now, ensuring that the next generation of international work should have Ethiopia and the rest of Africa as a leading international solutions provider. We understand the challenges the world faces in delivering on human needs for a future where everyone can live flourishing lives on a planet in balance and how to deliver great results with limited resources. I wish you all well at COP28 and look forward to working together for a better future. During 2024, we hope to bring internationally leading startups from Ethiopia to the attention of the world together with you. I thank you.
I don't know if that was a symbolic of me hardly hearing the global south, but I hope that you on out there in the web could hear the volume better, because apparently still the voices from the global south are hard to hear here at the COP. But let's hand over to one of the people who's been leading the international work on really bringing innovation at the center stage. Eleanor Webster, who's the head of the Mission Innovation Secretariat, who I hope we have with us on the screen.
Yes. Hello, Dennis. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Great. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Dennis, and hello, everybody. So I am the head of the Secretariat for Mission Innovation. So I'm going to give a very short bit of background to what Mission Innovation is, and then talk about a little bit on what we do in relation to clean energy innovation. So thank you again, Dennis, for this kind invitation. It is an honour to be here, and sincere apologies I'm not there in person. I will be on the ground from Monday, and very much looking forward to it. I'm all packed and ready to go. So, Mission Innovation, for those that haven't come across it, is a global initiative with the objective to catalyse a decade of action and investment in research, development, and demonstration to make clean energy affordable, attractive, and accessible for all. Mission Innovation, or MI, was born at COP21 in 2015 to try to deliver the discussions around the Paris Agreement. And it was the likes of Obama and President Modi that really felt that there was a need to bring countries together on innovation specifically. A key thing about us is that we are very action orientated and we bring government leaders together who pioneer clean energy solutions through domestic innovation action and then international cooperation. So we try and be the bridge between the two. So besides seeing huge increases in investment in clean energy innovation over the 10 years since MI started, we've also got a highly active and committed global network of the best and the brightest when it comes to clean energy to work on the most important transition challenges. We focus our efforts on actions that will truly push the boundaries of clean energy innovation in areas where driving down emissions is most crucial. But in line with what's being discussed now, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. When we think about the clean energy innovation agenda, a good place to start is what do we mean by innovation? And this is something that us as a community really do think about quite a lot. So, we often default to innovation as technological innovation and technological readiness levels and these sorts of things. And we often take a sectoral approach when we think about innovation. But to move from this kind of common agenda where lots of countries are in agreement about where we need to go to actual action requires more than perhaps just thinking about technology. So the clean energy transition, as we all know, and I think we heard a little bit in the previous session, is about so much more than energy. The challenge is linked to geography, to politics, and to societal trends, or in other words, how we are living our lives. As such, a term that we like to use sometimes is energy relevant innovation. So even in recent history, we have seen huge changes in how we consume things like television, i.e., platforms like Netflix, how we work. We see a lot more home working now, hence why I'm here and able here today to speak to you all, and how we consume information, such as through social media. So we need to be thinking in terms of what society needs and not just replacing one fuel for another and assuming that nothing will continue to change in terms of how we live our lives. For example, electric cars are obviously the future of cars. But electric cars may not be the future of mobility. And these are the terms that we're trying to think in as an initiative. But also, it's about the right solution for the right place. So, for example, what constitutes a sensible solution for clean energy in an island state, for example, is unlikely to be the same for mountain regions. And the clean energy transition gives us a huge potential to really try to um, unlock lots of opportunity for all kinds of different geographic, political, social settings. So it's about the right solution for the right place. And never before have we really had this opportunity to unlock so many co-benefits, and that's really important when we try and approach innovation in a strategic way. And linking to the point, clean energy innovation, it's so important to think about the systems level as well as the sectoral level. And through doing that, addressing human needs. So how do we move around cities? How do we move around rural areas? How do we move between countries? And how do we move our goods around through shipping, etc.? So linking to kind of what Dennis was mentioning about this sort of shift in mindset towards thinking about that real systems level and how we all live together. So we really, the message I want to leave on is that we're at a really exciting moment and we have so many great innovators, so many great ideas. So let's take this common agenda and turn it into action. I know that's what we're all here at the COP to do. So thank you very much, Dennis, for the opportunity. I'm sorry, and I can't be there, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Being virtual is as important as being physical, I think. It's where your heart is. But now to the first person in this, well, we had the minister, of course, but the triangle of India, Brazil, and Ethiopia might be one of the most exciting for this new generation of incubators. So I'd like to hand over to Smita, who's been leading much of the work and within Mission Innovation on this kind of work on thinking, how do we practically push the next generation solution providers out there in reality? Smita.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. And thanks to everyone joining us online as well as here in person. Like Dennis said, I work with Social Alpha, an initiative in India which we describe as a multi stage innovation, curation, and venture development platform. And by which, what I mean is that we have a network of incubation labs. thematic accelerators, and an investment engine that looks at debt, equity, as well as grant funding for early stage solutions and innovations that are high on impact and are prioritizing the needs of the most underserved communities. So we signed up for some of this work and an audacious goal of delivering on net zero. More than a cumulative goal between 2023 and 2025 to curate more than 100 solutions that deliver on at least more than 1 gigaton of emission avoidance potential per year, and are ready to be deployed by 2030. So when we signed up for this, we obviously our work on innovation has been a very inclusive one, which I'll talk a little bit about, but more from the point of view of marrying net zero goals with social goals and ensuring that business metrics don't compromise on social metrics has been an important part of the strategy. So maybe I'll share a few aspects of the strategy of the work we do in India. Starting with, and what I think is one of the most important things for any work on innovation, especially if we are planning to deliver on such audacious goals around climate mitigation, but also solving for development needs. I come from a country which is a country of so many developmental challenges around poverty, around basic core human needs, infrastructure, access to energy, inequities, massive inequities, and massive challenges around basic provisioning of some of the essential services. And therefore the approach, the prioritization part of delivering on scale becomes the most important one. What needs are we prioritizing? Human needs, are they core needs? Are they needs that deliver on quality of life for all? Are they inclusive needs? And secondly, whose needs are we prioritizing? Are these the most underserved communities where we don't see a very active market, but where markets exist where needs exist, but can we tap into those markets as underrepresented markets? So essentially, where we put our priorities, what criteria, what metrics we choose to decide what innovations and what solutions need funding and support is crucial to identifying how are we going to deliver on our goals. So that's the first part. And very important there is factoring in the magnitude of emissions, because not all problems, not all sectors, not all solutions will deliver at the same level of carbon or equivalent avoidance. But aren't we talking about adaptation and resilience building? Aren't we talking of other needs, for example, around food security, around livelihoods and income, around waste management, menstrual health, around farmers and agriculture that is done in a climate resilient and compatible way. So factoring in all of these as the fundamental aspect, as the base of how we make decisions on what to choose, and then building on top of that with a very high ambitious net zero goals. So in a way, we are pulling in three different directions. So making sure that any innovation that is prioritized for support is handheld through the entire journey, but is delivering on social goals, on climate goals, as well as have a business model that's sustainable and effective to deliver in reality on these goals. So that becomes the key strategy of who we support. Now, how do we do that? We work through the entire value chain of an innovation's growth, because very often than not, and you spoke about valleys of death, there are multiple valleys of death when we are talking about innovations in high risk categories where paying markets are not easily available, where where risk is higher because we're talking of products which have a longer gestation period and don't have easier markets to find. So how do we do that? We work on the idea to lab to market, and then market deployment at scale, diffusion at scale. So the entire full stack architecture, meeting the needs of innovations and early stage startups at different stages, no matter what stage of their life cycle they're at, as long as they're delivering on impact. The third important feature is looking at blended finance, because we often get into this whole paradigm, this dichotomy of not for profit and for profit. And we think impact can only be created through not for profit models, and for profit models always have to be exploitative in terms of scaling and delivering on business promises. We operate in the middle. What we are trying to prove is that the impact prioritization of the not-for-profit world and the business models of the for-profit world can come together to create long-term sustainable impact, especially in the developing world where we need to deliver on at scale, very, very soon and very effectively. And then the final thing that I'll talk about is scale. How do you do all of this at scale and ensure deployment and diffusion at scale? And a couple of examples of that. One is, again, looking at especially markets where we need consistent funding and not expecting that once something is proven on the ground, it will scale up on its own. So unpacking the idea of scale in order to look at scale in a staggered way, because every geography within India, geographies and regions are so unique. Every country is very different. So when we export solutions or replicate solutions, how do we make sure we are not assuming that it will go from 1 to 100x on its own, but we bring in the right support to make sure it's getting customized, it's getting the right funding, and it's getting the right kind of ecosystem to be replicated and scaled up in newer regions. And Dennis spoke about the other initiative around scale that we have, which is called the Clean Tech Exchange Platform, which we have conceptualized and delivered with Mission Innovation Secretariat, with Rise Institute, Mission Innovation India, and the International Energy Agency. Which many countries have come together to work collaboratively on, where the idea is that if a solution is successful in one country, we're talking about climate, which is a global public good, and we're talking about developmental issues which are common in most of the developing countries, if not globally. How do we export these solutions through a network of soft landing platforms where we reduce the time and the cost of scale up and make sure that a successful solution is responding to problems elsewhere and is not just restricted by geographical boundaries? So, with that, I'll pause. But my hope is in the power of innovation and entrepreneurship to deliver on promises of development, on promises of net zero, and ensure that it's a win win solution for all based on human needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mita. And with that, I'd like to hand over to one of the new heroes that we're working with, um, Leandro Costa, who is the head of innovation and entrepreneurship at this innovation park in Brazil. And Brazil will, of course, be at the center stage in the next 2 years because COP30 will be in Brazil. And that might be the first COP that could be really solution orientated. So if we can get Leandro, that's the video, not him. Not the video. Not the video. No, I'll say video when I want video. So Leandro, who is on the video call, can you? I'm sorry, Leandro.
No worries. It's
Thank
me
you.
in
Now you're
video,
on screen.
by the way. All right, now can you see me? Yes? Can you hear properly? Perfect. All right.
Yes, perfect.
So first of all, thank you so very much for involving us at the PIT, the Park of Innovation Technology here in Brazil, in São José dos Campos, actually, which is a very promising region here, right? You know, between Rio and São Paulo in Brazil. Who is from San Jose, by the way, we like to say that we're very close to the beach, nice beaches. We're very close to the mountains with good food. And we're right logistically between, the main ports and airports in Brazil also. So this is worth mentioning, first of all. Of course, then you can all come and visit, of course. But just to explain a little bit of what we're doing here in terms of ESG and, having an impact, a positive impact in the world. Right now, the PIT, we were born with the sole purpose of developing locally, nationally, and globally our region and countries, and of course impacting the world through science, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So this is basically our main motto and what we live for and what we do things the way we do. Um, in the meantime, basically how we do that is that we catalyze connections. Just as you can see in the background, this is a good representation of what we do. We catalyze connections between what we call the quadruple helix. I believe everybody is aware of that concept. But joining private sector, public sector, academia, and social society here at the PIT. During all these period of time, right now we are at a moment in where we have an ecosystem of around 400 companies and businesses involved in this sole purpose of impacting positively through these science, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. um, from these 400 companies associated with the tech park, we also have around 85 startups that we are working with. And working with startups, everybody, I think in lifetime, when we talk about this period of development, we can see that they are very flexible, not just in terms of adapting their technology, but also of bringing their solution to the world. And what we have seen, and what we have trying and started working with is having these startups become ESG enablers. So during whole period of time that we have here working with technology innovation and innovation as a whole, because it was very well mentioned during the panel. I mean, innovation is not just about technology, but how you bring those inventions and those and those anything that you can innovate and make that collectively valued to the community, right? Uh, we have we have seen is that startups are the main point of bringing these solutions and making them ESG enablers to the world. And of course, the world as being a future vision, but right now we're doing this locally and impacting here in Brazil with these enablers. In Brazil, we have around 800, mapped ESG enablers as startups. When you can think of the size of the country, that's a very small number, so not very large yet. But little by little, we're working to change that. Just to mention, three cases that we have here. We have We Solutions, which right now they're working with carbon net zero, changing carbon credits, not just in where we expect to be done, but also in services such as hotels and all of that. And in parallel, they're changing the Amazon communities, working with reforestation of these communities and the impact that they have with the smaller communities living there. Um, we are also working with to give a little context, as I mentioned, we're very close to the beach and we're very close to the mountains going countryside, which means we're in a valley. And this means, and this, comes as an impact for us geographically speaking and in climate. We have a lot of, during summertime, um, uh, natural disasters happening in the region. So for that, and as we are very known for the aerospace industry, we have solutions here which we offer to what we call nowcasting. So bringing all these forecasting for natural disasters, which happens, in a period of 5 minutes, 7 minutes. That's what we need. Bringing these solutions to the municipalities that we have around this, so they can have enough time to warn, the communities and say leave because this is going to be a disaster now. And to close on our cases, we are also working with smaller sewage treatment plants, which we make use of. I forgot, in ships when you have forgot the names of the Well, anyhow, where we transport in ships, totally forgot right now. I'm a bit nervous, but anyhow, I totally forgot right now what they're called. But you know, the ships where we have the small boxes, metal boxes, which we transport. They're transforming um, water treatment plants inside those small boxes, in which, by the way, we have one here working, and the water in the PIP is now being treated with these and using biotech technologies to treat not just the water, but also um, um, garbage that we have, you know, residual physical residues that we have here in the tech park. So basically, what we're doing now is between taking all that we have, the expertise of joining private sector, public sector, academia, and the civil society, joining what we have in an ecosystem, a very vibrant ecosystem with which generates over in 2022 we generated over 20 million reais as tax returns. We had over 20 million reais invested in R&D here at the tech park. In general, we have this in the ecosystem to make our startups and to enable our startups to bring the solutions, or at least to adapt the solutions, to think that, okay, I can go to the private sector, I can go to my potential clients, do this impact X, Y, and Z, but I also can use this with the purpose of impacting positively the world. So this is our contribution locally here in Brazil, and of course, generating a huge impact that we have here. So thank you so very much. Unfortunately, as Eleanor said, I couldn't be there personally. Hopefully, I can be there next year or in the upcoming years. And thank you so very much for getting interest in what we're doing here in Brazil.
Thank you, Leandro. And I really look forward to collaborate and really see how we get the gigaton of solutions from Brazil and really see how the incubators and the tech parks in Brazil can be at the center stage in the next 2 years when Brazil hosts the climate negotiations. Because I think Brazil is maybe so well positioned, also being both in the rich world and the poorer world, being sort of able to understand all of these needs in society. And that's where I think Ethiopia and India and Brazil together can do something, but also with support, of course, with countries like Sweden. Niklas Karlsson has been one of the heroes, and Sweden together with India was the two first countries who collaborate around this sort of gigaton approach and really delivering on these things. So, Niklas, could you share a little bit of your thinking around solutions?
Yes, thank you so much, Dennis, and I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we hear you.
Thumbs up, good, good. I'm very happy to see these countries sitting around the table because I have to say we've been looking into many of these countries, Brazil, Ethiopia, India, of course, will connect for many, many years. So happy to take the discussion further, maybe not today. My name is Niklas Karlsson. I'm the Director for International Market Development at Swedish Energy Agency. 500 people plus working for the Swedish government. The idea is for us to carry out what the government wants to do in the field of energy and climate. We currently run 18 international programs in various countries, focusing on different thematic areas such as batteries, district heating and cooling, renewable energy, and so on and so forth. But I would like to touch a little bit upon the role of Sweden. And we are one of the leaders when it comes to the green transition. And we are currently close to being fossil free. We do have a few percentages left. So we're aspiring to address them in the coming years. Having said that, we are responsible for less than 1% of the world's total emissions today. But we do think that small Sweden can play an important role in reducing them across the world. So we're quite active globally. And we are, at the moment, the largest public financier when it comes to energy and climate tech in Sweden, but most likely in Northern Europe as well. And we do think that our role to encourage and support cutting edge ideas and solutions before they are bankable is very critical, and especially geared towards small and medium sized companies because we do think that the new solutions will come from them. And some of these collaborations have resulted in some flagship projects. So Northvolt opening up country production facilities across Europe and also now North America. And we were early on financing and supporting Northvolt because we saw the potential of course, the car, but also bus and truck industries becoming electrified. We also have hybrid, the production of fossil-free steel in the north of Sweden, where it's very cold. I'm very happy to see that we are working very closely with India today as part of Lead It. There will be some activities later on COP. I will be there from Wednesday and onwards. And of course, Scania and Volvo, two of the major truck companies in the world, shifting towards electrification with the help of us, of course. And this is of course very important, not only in Sweden but in the whole world. How can we sort of facilitate this change? And working with other countries and other actors, like the one sitting at this table, is the way to do it. We need to focus where we can make the most progress with a lead effort, but maybe not the least financing opportunities. And the development is taking place in other countries in Europe at the moment, both in terms of population growth, but more importantly, in terms of economics. We are seeing a lot of things happening in other geographies. You're talking about the global south, that's one way of putting it. And we are also looking into how we can become more involved in the global south, having been very present in countries like Japan, Canada, the US, Germany. We're seeing new needs and new opportunities, of course. And of course, I think Masamba mentioned the importance of leapfrogging. How can we make sure that these countries can avoid falling into the same traps that we did in Europe and the industrial parts of the world, and also getting there faster than we did, because I think that's an important point to mention. And lastly, I mean, just looking at the world and where we stand today, I mean, the last 2 years have shown us that we live in a new paradigm, and I think that's can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, it depends on what we make of it. But also that climate is on everybody's lips and green transition. But also that we are depending on value chains that can be used in a good and a bad way. We're seeing a world where energy and climate can be used as a weapon, which I think 2 years before that wasn't the case. And now I'm talking about Europe, not anywhere else. Um, so I think that's worth mentioning. But I would like to end by saying that there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of possibilities, that we need to work together, not alone, in order to sort of make the green transition happen. So I'll stop there. I like the word that I think Masamba mentioned, caring, sharing, and daring. That was new to me. So I'll stop with those words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Niklas. And it's so good to see that we have existing structures that actually produce something. So it's not a pipe dream in the sky; it's actually happening today. Um, but also, there's an opportunity to be innovative with innovation. I think Caitlin Nash and the work of the Global Innovation Initiative is something that is also coming from another approach that is not sort of a governmental, but also helping startups and the new generation solution providers. Caitlin, can you share a little bit with your thoughts?
Yes, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. And I can tell I'm on a panel of like-minded peers and colleagues. And I think, isn't it just the most powerful experience to be united from different points of the world, all channeling our focus into the same place? I think just that alone is uplifting and inspiring. As Dennis said, my name is Caitlin. I'm often positioned as a lobbyist for African innovation. I've worked for just over a decade to really raise visibility globally of how valuable African innovation is and to bring on board investment and partners for the continent. As Dennis mentioned, I am one of the co-founders of the Global Innovation Initiative Group. Uh, we essentially support emerging startup nations in Africa, and we do that in a number of ways. But most efficient way to explain how we do that um, is to say that we're helping the continent build heroes. And yesterday, when I was driving with my daughter, who's now 10, so when we think about the SDGs finishing and I think about her going into young adulthood, I had an organic conversation with her in the car about one day when she grows up, the world will look very different, and how she will have to live one day will be very different to how we're living at the moment. And it's a very uncomfortable conversation for me, and I had to manage it in a way that didn't scare her because she was already saying, "But why wouldn't I have a big house? And why wouldn't I have this? And what do you mean?" And that I'm sure we're all experiencing in our families and with friends, and that's what makes it real. This work that we're doing is it's not theoretical. We're literally just trying to save our lives and our children's lives and our neighbors' lives. So when we say we try to build heroes, in Africa, where entire nations are embracing leapfrogging approaches to development to deliver on NETA, I think you mentioned social goals, commercial goals, environmental goals. There's this opportunity, and obviously with India and Africa and Brazil having similar emerging markets, it's the opportunity to build the future in a completely different way. And there certainly is an appetite to do it. Um, so every nation needs these heroes, not because we want to create a Silicon Valley that has big ticket sizes, but we want to create points of demonstrable innovation that shows transformation is possible. And that's what heroes do. They go on journeys, they conquer huge challenges, they get some help from guides along the way, and they transform. And when they come out the other side, they're stronger and wiser and more courageous. And that's essentially what we do. So one of the programs we run is the Global Startup Awards Africa. Yes, it's a startup competition, but what it is a simple mechanism through which we've been able to unite the 55 countries in Africa. So we identify emerging technology across the entire African continent. We've run 2 full cycles thus far. We work with over 300 innovation hubs across the continent, over close to 1,000 experts that assist with mentoring and judging, and we've had just over 15,000 applications over the last 2 years. With this, we had our first coming together in Cape Town in 2022, and we've just completed hosting our African finale in Ethiopia under the patronage of the government. Hence, very happy to have been able to bring the minister into this program. We find fund and grow startups, and that's not a very novel concept. And many people do that. But essentially, what we are saying is that we are finding startups in Africa that can solve the world's most pressing problems. And I'll give you just a few quick examples. So, Quebec, who last week was nominated in Times Magazine as one of the top 100 impact leaders, we found him. And he and his company, Quebec, take hard to recycle plastic and build it and transform it into affordable housing materials. So the entire business model is focused on reducing plastic, developing affordable housing at scale rapidly, and creating an environment, particularly for women who tend to be the waste pickers, dignified and integritous ways for women to earn a living. Just in 2 years, they've already removed 15,000 tons of plastic and zero point 0.1 million tons of carbon emissions. And that's only in 2 years. When you look at their projections, it's unbelievable what they will do in terms of practically removing waste and removing carbon. So they're a great business model because as they scale, the more they scale, the more carbon they remove and the more waste they remove. So it's unbelievable. A simple example is Moment, who was our Web3 winner this year. This They do incredible work not only around solar schools, but solar schools are a key focus of them. They use Web3 and blockchain to actually finance solar for schools. And just through their project, um, they've they've offset around 200 million kilograms of CO2 through their solar sites that they funded through their digital assets, and they're just scaling more and more every day. So Cubic started in Ethiopia. Moment operates in South Africa and Africa. 2 other quick examples. We've one of our winners this year, Basigo. They're based in Kenya. They're in the EV market. It's so clever. They are working with public buses, and they've got an entire business model where they support the bus and taxi industry to replace their normal batteries with EV batteries. So you're not looking at an individual EV market. You're saying, well, how do we transform the entire public transport system onto EV? And they're doing it very successfully in Kenya at the moment. The last example is we've got a couple of businesses like My Watchman who integrates various emergency and safety response mechanisms together to have a unified response and a more speedy response to help those sort of in rural areas or privileged areas or just don't live in very urbanized, supported, serviced areas. And they're doing that in Liberia. So they're basically transforming the whole Liberia to be safer, quicker, faster in terms of responding to emergencies of all natures. So this is what we're doing. And looking at Africa as what Bill Gates called the continent, the one young continent. Yeah, we're doing it, and I will be arriving in COP in 2 days time, and the call out really is to say who can partner with us to help us fund these people and to scale solutions that we'll find. So Dennis, thank you very much for Gigaton. I'm sure Africa is going to play an absolutely critical role in making a better future for my daughter, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. And I hope we will get the next time 100 only with startups from the emerging countries and really showing that what the future looks like. With that, I would like to hand over to Marvin, because I think one of the major things that really happened during this year was that G7 came out with avoided emissions and World Business Council came out with guidance. And this really opens up a whole new opportunity for large companies also to embrace startups and start selling their solutions and getting avoided emissions. And your thoughts around the opportunities you see here now with new public, private, and large companies, small companies.
Yeah, I think I'm wired here. Can you hear me well? Yeah, I think that should work. Yeah, thank you very much, Dennis. Really also inspiring to listen to the previous speakers. And of course, thanks from the World Business Council for Sustainable Development for the opportunity. I think mostly thank you for also for bearing with us here to this side of the room. So yeah, as you said, I think avoided emissions is really on the grow now. I think to give you a bit of context why this is, or what I'm trying to do is explain a bit why this is needed and also how this can really unfold, especially at the intersection of corporate and startup innovation. First of all, we have to see that the challenges we face around climate are more and more complex, right? We do not really understand the connections anymore between an intervention that happens and the effect it can have. If I expand the scope, this also affects migration, economic stability, and other like key issues. On the other hand, we are trying to tackle these issues at the moment with a strong inventory-based approach. So we look at each company, and each company should try to reduce their own emissions. This is case by case and inventory driven. This is very strong reduction based narrative, especially when you think of large corporates. So there's a strong mismatch, right? We are going case by case to solve extreme complex and interdependent issues. What we then realize is that this is something that corporates are struggling with, but also startups. I worked with yeah, both in my research, particularly with circular startups. We analyzed around 150 of them. Now, of course, in the WBCSD, more on the corporate side of things. Overall, we see that these solutions that really tackle systemic challenges require more effort beyond the pure scaling. And as you said before, just making the next sale, but you also need to connect unconnected supply chains. You need to empower and make customers aware of new ways of consumption. And you also have to work on regulatory gray zones, right? Where sometimes product standards, but also regulation is not as advanced as it could be in order for those solutions that really can have an impact to scale. So what we are lacking here is systemic alignment because several players along value chains, partly also outside of the corporate system, have to collaborate. Finance and policy as well have to be aligned and have to have directionality on solution pathways that can transform sectors. And this is where essentially avoided emission comes in. Startups, when we talk to them, were always telling us they are really struggling, especially circular startups whose intervention happen very, very far away from the impact they have. They were telling us there is no real framework, no mechanism for us to show the impact that we can have. Likewise, corporates, as I said, are driven by risk and by reduction narratives, but not by opportunities. And I love the comment from my previous speaker to say we need to also find those solutions of which I want to sell more, those products and services that I want to sell more in order to decarbonize. So these are problems that essentially both worlds, corporate and startup, need to tackle. And avoided emissions is the concept that can help to do this by trying to analyze the impact that solutions have beyond the direct organization or solution provider. If you think of low carbon animal food, if you think of building management software, grid optimization, which are more the corporate solutions, but also seaweed or mycelium based materials. If you think of upcycling, for example, of bio waste into activated charcoal, so really scalable solutions, these are often separate from the beneficiary, right? They're provided at some point, but the beneficiary is somewhere else. With avoided emissions, we are trying to capture the impacts that can be realized by essentially comparing this solution scenario in which these low carbon products and services are in place with a reference scenario. And this is particularly also relevant for the global south, because as you probably can imagine, it's strongly context dependent, right? If I think of a heating cooling solution, I need to gear it very differently, and it can have very different impact when I compare it in an application in the Netherlands to Nigeria to South Africa. Climate, technological advancement, customer adoption. So all these elements I need to take into consideration when creating a baseline, understanding what is the consumer doing in this specific case, if the consumer wouldn't be using the solution that we are trying to analyze. And through this, I am able to compare, and also in a relatively fair way, compare different solutions in terms of the decarbonizing impact they can have. And also, and that's the probably more important part, I'm able to mobilize systems. I'm able to step away from this case by case perspective onto a more systemic perspective to kind of blueprint transformation pathways for sectors. And that's essentially what this avoided emissions concept can add, by not only comparing solutions in a blue field, but then really in a context specific way, so that we can also identify where scaling of these solutions can have the maximum impact. And this can then really lead to the unlock of financial support, of green bonds or sustainable bonds, but also on the policy side around regulation to identify what do we have to do in order for these solutions to really scale up. And yeah, we have published this guidance this year. Invite everybody to look into this. We're also working now with startup projects to see where this can really thread the needle. In India, for example, deep geothermal drilling is one example. A low carbon cement in Nigeria, where we see very strong urbanization. So we're really also trying to figure out how this can be applied not only in the global north, but also lead to leapfrogging for the global south. And yeah, happy to engage on that with this great panel, but also, of course, with the people here in the room.
Thank you very much. And now we're a bit over time, but we started late. So just to end, when we had our event in India a few months ago, Andrew Pease was there, and we had a discussion also with Andy Stokes. And the Energy Catapult in the UK has really been at the forefront of trying to see how we can collaborate among incubators. So just like to put the last video on now from Andrew, because he had a bad connection, so we didn't know if we were able to make it, but he also did a video then to be sure. So just a short ending video with one of the most innovative bodies on the planet. So here he is.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Stokes. I lead into the international work at the Energy Systems Catapult in the UK. The Energy Systems Catapult is a not-for-profit innovation agency set up to support the transition to net zero, also to support the scale-up of the innovations, products, services we need to get us there. We've done a lot of international work. We strongly believe that to meet the challenges of global climate change and to realize a gigaton opportunity, we're only going to achieve this if we collaborate a lot internationally, creating clusters of innovation that are bringing together learnings from different markets with a keen focus on the local nature of challenges as well. And if we take a whole systems approach, which is going beyond technology, to think about the impact on the consumer and how how technology innovations are improving their quality of lives as well. And these beliefs have really been embodied in our innovating approach, which is something we've used in a number of countries now to great success, which looks at the local challenges, the local natures of climate challenges, and identifies innovators who have solutions that can go some way to addressing them, gets them together, and allows them to test and demonstrate in the local context to support their scale up. And that's really what's behind our flagship initiative, Innovating for Transport and Energy Systems, which is a bilateral initiative between the UK government and the Indian government, which we'll hear a little bit more about in a video now. Thank you.
ITES, or Innovating for Transport and Energy Systems, is an exciting bilateral initiative backed by the UK government and the Indian government. And what we're trying to do is increase visibility, understanding about some of the transport and energy system challenges out there in terms of decarbonisation. We want to bring partners together to work collaboratively to find solutions.
A center like ITES can play a very important role in guiding policies, in guiding technologies, in guiding solutions that would help transport sector to address this requirement, this need for reducing their carbon emissions.
We're bringing the brightest minds together from both sides to tackle lots of global challenges.
It is taking their best ideas from industry, from academia, and helping them work together to create new products and services.
Energy Systems Catapult have been doing a lot of work with India over the last few years, specifically focusing around innovations in air quality and electric vehicles. So what we're looking to do is to support innovations that are close to market, where the user base is starting to build. But we're looking to address as well innovations that are further away from being ready for the market.
We want more collaborations, more targeted partnership. We want industry to articulate what their challenges are, and we want to create more funding opportunities for the researchers to deploy early stage technologies.
You need multidiscipline expertise to be able to comprehensively address the issues and the development goals that we are trying to focus.
Well, put simply, we will not tackle this challenge if we don't work together to solve it. And that means collaboration. It means sharing of ideas. It means opening up of new markets, which is why this project is so exciting.
I think that was a perfect note to end on. We need to collaborate. And if you feel depressed sometimes with climate change, look at these organizations. The future is here. There's so much passion and so much solutions already out there. We just need to scale it and make sure that things are going out to the people that needs it. Thank you, everyone, and we'll end anyway.